Churned is presented by Update AI.
As you rightly stated, I think we are very much of the belief that at some point in the not too distant future, that AI agents will become indispensable in the workplace. I think that we just got into a fascinating discussion last week with the CIO, with comparing sort of our belief system and when that will happen and what will be required to make it successful versus his. And I think the contrast is kind of what you're describing here. There's a world where you can just index all your data into a single place and let the agents run wild and help make sense and action things that you need them to.
How are you as a GTM leader thinking about go to market when you are actually selling the unknown? Because that is the goal of this, is that we are creating these things, and that's a hard thing to attain. And then the flip side,
John, I think that was my favorite question you ever asked in this series.
No, you started this whole thing.
We did a project that
it's been like 20 years, and you haven't said that to anybody else in the room.
That's true. So, we did a project back in elementary school together, building bridges that was supposed to withhold some exorbitant amount of weight. I was at Josh's house. I remember this vividly. Josh doesn't remember any of it, which I think is
that's very normal for Josh, though.
So. Who was more dependent on the other for the success or the grade that we were looking for?
All right, we're going to get more into it. That's actually reducing kind of like our childhood together. Like many years.
It's true.
Yeah.
Soccer.
Wait, there was something deeper than that.
Chrissy, just go.
Was it just the bridge? Was it just the bridge, or was there more?
When the episode starts, you can get all the dirt on me if you'd like. It's fine.
I want it.
We talk about our mutual crushes in the 6th grade, whatever you want.
Whoa! Mike definitely got the girl, didn't
Christy,
he?
Don't.
Mike definitely got the girl, didn't he?
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Josh, co-host of Churned, and I'm trying to cut off my other co-hosts, John and Christy. They're really excitable, these two.
Josh made a mistake, and he told us that he knows Mike personally from his childhood, and now we're only going to talk about Josh as a baby.
Yeah. This has just become a big therapy session here, a big reveal. All right, everybody. So welcome to the episode. Welcome to Mike Haylon. Mike is the GM of AI at Asana, which is an amazing role. And he was recently anointed that and had come from leadership within the sales org. And I think Mike, right, both were reporting to the CRO in many ways. And so we're going to get into that whole backstory, talk about AI at Asana and some of the cool things that they're doing, and talk about the relationship of sales and customer success. And then the big reveal
and
here,
talk about your
is about
relationship.
Yes. So Mike and I are
childhood
both.
Of who? What her name was?
Okay. So Mike Haylon and Josh Schachter, we both are from West Hartford, Connecticut. Turns out, and we didn't know this at the time, but turns out there's been a lot of cool people from West Hartford, but that have done some cool things. But we went to Braeburn Elementary School, small little elementary school, and we were in first or kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we went to Sedgwick Middle School together. Shared a bunch of teachers and a bunch of crushes and friends. And, but I want to actually start off. Christy and John, do you guys remember the kid from when you were in grade school that was like excelled in sports and like the girls had the crush on and was a good student, but then also was super cool thus, right? But also was just like a nice person as well. They weren't like the douchey jock cool kid.
Josh, was that you?
No.
I'm just kidding. That was definitely Mike.
That was definitely Mike.
Mike definitely gives me those vibes.
Yeah. What vibes do I give you?
The guy
who wanted to be like Mike.
The guy who always has to be like, hey, remember that guy?
Josh, I'm pretty confident. Yeah. I'm pretty confident you've always been a little... We're going to say...
Let's hear it.
Wow. I wasn't going to call him a pick-me.
Pick-me.
That's worse. I was going to say kind of like... I was going to say like a little bit of a jerk, Josh. So like you make it hard to love you. I mean, I love you.
I was nice to guys like Josh because I was dependent on them for my own grade success. So that's what that project was all about.
Yeah.
Or if you're like close enough to Josh, then the girls see you next to him and they gravitate towards you.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wanted him next to me in the pictures,
Yeah.
No, but
yes, I do, Josh. Mine was Jeremy Valorand. And
wow. That name is really on the tip of your tongue. Do you want to talk about this?
No, he just texted me to see if I wanted to come to our 25-year reunion, high school reunion.
Are you going?
I I mean, there's like 9 of us, so it's just like another Tuesday.
Wait, 9 because your school was that small, or 9 because this is like a last man standing kind of situation?
I think it's a little bit of both. It was a private Christian school, and like half of us don't have that C word in front of our name anymore. So we have different C words. But yeah, I might go. We'll see. I'll let you know.
You should go. I went to my 23-year reunion. We didn't have a 20-year because of COVID, so they did it like 3 years later.
Yeah. That's good. So,
there was like
Mike,
my last Mike story, and then we'll move on. And Mike said, "What the heck did I agree to on this episode?" Here?
He's not quite sure.
But so blacktop basketball recess every day, and I think, Mike, you tell me if I'm getting this right or not, if this is revisionist history, but it was always like alternating who was the first pick on the blacktop for basketball. It was you or Jared Jordan, right? It's kind of like back and forth. The other guy, Jared Jordan, ended up being making it to the NBA. And Mike was often selected.
I was nowhere close. Yeah, I think his kids go to Brayburn now. Actually,
do they really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Josh, you're like really trying to like.
And his dad's name is Michael Jordan.
Oh, that's right. And his dad's name is Michael Jordan.
He was, on that path from early.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So, what do you have going on as the GM of AI at Asana?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you tell us what does that even mean, Mike? Because
it's really it's a little more focused than that. It's GM of AI Studio. I think we're building a go-to-market practice around this new no-code workflow builder that we've recently launched late last year at our marquee event, the Work Innovation Summit. We host in a number of cities, but the marquee one's in New York in November. And, honestly, even to our surprise, the overwhelming demand, from launch for this product. And so I think we could quickly mobilized a go-to-market practice around it. So it's right now, it's only me and one other person on the team. But we're working closely with different parts of the business to, put our entire go-to-market strategy around this. And that demand has continued into lots of closed one business early in the year. And so now, if you're familiar with a co-prime or an overlay model, this team will essentially partner with the global revenue team to help them make sense of, this product for themselves and also for customers. And we'll do that either programmatically through, enablement and product launches and, marketing assets, but also, our team will hire sales engineers and account executives in our own right that will not work with customers directly. They will not own the territory, the book, the customers that they work themselves, but they will partner with the global team as AI experts, AI Studio specifically, to help customers adopt and get the most out of this product.
A lot to unpack there. John, Christy, what do you got? I've got questions, but why don't you guys
Mike, can you describe the product? Because I feel like we're using like broad strokes, but I still don't know what AI Studio is at Asana.
What are the top 3 jobs to be done?
Really, I think the best way to understand it is to put workflows behind work. And usually it's intake of work. So you can imagine on this podcast, for example, if with all the popularity that it has and all the people really trying to come in and interview on this show, and they're just inundating you with requests to get onto your show, you're just a few people with jobs on the side, and you have to manage that high volume of work and turn it into something. And so we put a no-code workflow builder behind that to allow you to intake this, say, via a form that they've filled out, to automatically triage it based on what's been input into that form. This has all the information or it doesn't, to start asking custom questions back and forth with those people without human having to intervene that early in the process. And then you can, of course, build additional automations and integrations behind it to make, that workflow you're building that much more powerful. But that's a little bit about what it does.
I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm hearing like, okay, so he's running the future of Asana.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that with hyperbole. I literally mean that, right? Because the future, it might be not all agentic right now. It might start out with some API workflows and stuff, but that's effectively what Asana is going to become, and that's what you're at the ground floor of, right?
I think that's, I mean, I don't think it's hyperbolic. I think there is truth to that. I think our CEO has said some version of that on earnings calls, as recently as last quarter. I think there's a belief that we're obviously, going well into the consumption world away from usage-based licenses. And I think even we've seen examples of this already. People are not having to necessarily log in and input data, which might have consumed a large number of our licenses historically, and instead can really use Asana, what it was intended to be, as a coordination layer for work that puts people in a position where they can do their most strategic work without having to do all the manual stuff up front. And so we're seeing, I think, this shift away from, what has taken us to 700 million plus in revenue, away from license and logins to, how real, I think something that you can quantify a bit more around value. You're consuming this much of a product because it is extending, that much value to you. And that over time, that I think we will likely see a shift from in terms of where our revenue is allocated as well.
You had mentioned a couple of models, an overlay model and some other model, and it was completely over my head. I don't know about John and Christy, but tell us a little.
Oh no, I'm in. Yeah, I got it.
I mean, it sounds like let me soundboard here. So it sounds like you're in charge of this capability, right? Of helping this capability go to market, which can kind of be laced into different pieces of the overall platform. And so your kind of role is to make sure it gets to market. You're internally that all the key stakeholders know about it so they can sell against it and all that kind of stuff. So you're kind of like the enablement of this studio within the organization. And so you're working very closely with all the different go-to-market pods to make sure that it has the best distribution and people know about it. Is that fair enough? Like what is the model within that of how you operate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Salesforce pioneered this model. They call it a co-prime. Their prime product is Salesforce platform. Their co-primes are Marketing Cloud, Services Cloud. And so they have teams that operate very similarly. They don't necessarily own the customer. The core AE owns the customer and works most directly with them. But the co-primes will come in when there's a need for that particular product line. And so they'll partner with the core account executive to bring the kind of expertise, into that discussion. And so we're doing that both, as you mentioned, programmatically with, working internally with cross-functional teams across Asana. And then, of course, an individual customer, situations where it makes sense. We're obviously just getting into this, scratching the surface. So we still have to build out coverage models and rules of engagement that sort of clearly establish exactly how we're used in this context. But generally, that's the idea.
So Mike, just out of curiosity, so right now, this is only additive to folks who are already using Asana, its core product, right? So this isn't a standalone?
It's part of the core product. You can use it for free as part of the core product to test it out and experiment with workflows that you want to build, as we mentioned, starting maybe centered around intake. Mm-hmm. You can, and we have seen already examples of customers. I think that's the most exciting thing for us is buying AI Studio as part of the licenses that they're buying initially to deploy it before they've even started to use the core product. But I'd say, the most common path right now is I'm already using Asana. I've tested out this for free in the core product, and I want to enable use of AI Studio as part of my license use as well.
Got it.
So where are you in the journey of this? Because it sounds like this is not a 3-month thing, right? This is a long rollout plan for you and setting up. I can only imagine you're probably just in even just the blueprinting phase of it in many ways, right? Like, how do you go about setting this whole machine up, and what initial learnings might you have already gleaned?
Well, this is my first time in a co-prime role too. So, I'm learning while I'm building, but a lot of the things are similar to, my experience in starting an early stage company and then building out a go-to-market practice. So I can draw both from that and the time at Asana and NetSuite, as an account executive and then leading teams, at a later stage. I think that's put me in a unique position. I think plus the 5 years that I've had already at Asana with the relationships and context for how this works to, be in a position to help us make decisions up front about how we want to take this to market. The demand truly has been overwhelming. We've been breaking records on inbound lead flow, among other things that I think just speak to the excitement and energy around this product line. But we are very much building while we're flying now. Customers are adopting and paying for this already because they're getting huge return on it, starting with the free version and, upgrading into our pro plan, we call it. And, we've already seen examples of, large manufacturing companies that we're spending $1 million to do this with subcontractors over the course of, a 12-month period, that it's now costing them $20,000 to be able to execute.
Wow. On that, you're talking about, obviously your customer experience is going to be this. I know that you are a traditional company, not traditional, but a tech company. Asana is a known company. You're not coming out of the woodworks that nobody knows who you are with brand recognition. But this product type isn't necessarily the most clear. It's like, you can use this to do anything. Even when you're asking what the tool does, like the traditional mindset is like, but what does it do? It's like, yes.
Not clear. Not clear.
Right?
Not clear. Defined. Right.
No, and I don't mean that. That's not actually my question. I don't need you to define it for me. What I'm kind of getting at is, how are you as a GTM leader thinking about go to market when you are actually selling the unknown? Because that is the goal of this, is that we are creating these things, and that's a hard thing to attain. And then the flip side,
John, I think that was my favorite question you ever asked in this series. That was a really good question.
Cool. I love it when you interrupt me in the middle of a question. Thank you.
You loved it that much.
There you go.
I would say that is all true. And I got an opportunity to sit in front of a bunch of our CIOs, executives last week. We have a customer advisory board where we get input on the future of the product and where we're headed. And we spent time with, those in North America as well as those across Europe, asking this very question. How do you go about evaluating and buying, AI software, particularly with all the hype, that is out there, and marketing and salespeople that are probably breathing down your neck to sell this? I think that the thing we heard to a person across that entire group was, it's all about the use case.
Yeah.
You really need to show me before and after of what this looks like in my world today versus what it looks like after. So I think a lot of our interest and motivation is around driving people for use of the product, to showing and enabling the field team on specific use cases like campaign management, creative production, intake requests.
Got it.
New product launches. These are core to the ideal customer profiles that leverage and benefit the most out of Asana, that are the most likely to be coming to us. PMOs that have to intake lots of work, from across a relatively large company. So we're empowering the field to, get really knowledgeable and educated about how these use cases work, to use them to create inspiration with our core buyers, the people that we're calling builders, that are the most likely to have leveraged Asana as a rule engine already, which has some powerful workflows you can build without AI today about, intaking work and understanding how you wanted to triage and assigned out across the organization. And now we've really just put that, made that much more powerful with AI. But to a person, they all said, it's really, don't bother with a differentiated message. Don't reach out to me. Talk to the people on my team and help them understand how they can make use of it, and then, build a business case around that.
I love that. I'm gonna draw a parallel to a marketplace from like 15 years ago. Do you remember when like connected homes came out? This idea, like you can plug your light in or your whatever it is to your phone. And right now, we have Google Home and they control everything, but there was no like centralized hub. Everybody had the Hue lamps and they had these, different things. You had to have 10 different apps. The way that I'm picturing this is almost the hub for all of these agentic AIs to make these decisions and follow your rules engines, right? So you think of Asana as almost the Salesforce, right? Where we have great questions. We have a repository, right? And you get information from here. I need it to go to my XYZ. The best part about agentic AI is the lack of integration needs, right? It's just making a decision as a person. Is that the use case that you're talking about? Less like, hey, it's all in one, we're doing it for you, you buy from us, and more, we're going to actually connect all of these dots for you, and this is the market, because it is not just what it does, but it is also how it interacts, and that's where the value comes in. We talk about clean data, we talk about duplication of effort or jobs to be done, and if I have to put the same data in 4 different databases, what's the point, right? So how do you seamlessly and cleanly synthesize that? Am I kind of tracing it?
Yeah, I think that's really well articulated. As you rightly stated, I think we are very much of the belief that at some point in the not too distant future that AI agents will become indispensable in the workplace. I think that we just got into a fascinating discussion last week with the CIO with comparing sort of our belief system and when that will happen and what will be required to make it successful versus his. And I think the contrast is kind of what you're describing here. There's a world where you can just index all your data into a single place and let the agents run wild and, help make sense and action things that you need them to. The challenge there is there's lack of context and structure on what they should do. And so you get a lot of hallucinations.
Yep.
And it can be difficult to get your employee base to rely on their value when that is the case. And so Asana's approach, and I think we benefit from the infrastructure our co-founder and CEO built when he launched Asana, but it's our proprietary infrastructure called the Work Graph. It's basically helping you make sense of how an individual task of unit of work that anyone across the company is executing connects to your most strategic, important goals across the company. And I think that puts us in a position to make sense of, to contextualize, to only give the agent what it requires in order to be successful to perform that particular task, and thus doesn't have to scrawl an entire database or system in order to define that. And so in being a bit more pointed, and then we can use the no-code workflow builder in a really simple, intuitive interface to allow people to build, things with that, more pointed context in mind. So it gives structure to the agent. It gives an intuitive intuitive interface to the user, and a much easier way to get value out of AI, at least today. And I think the discussion we got in is, at what point in the future will that change? Was there there will be a world where you're able to just let agents run wild? That's not today. It's probably not for the next 6 months. After that is anybody's guess.
All right. We're talking again in July then. Love that.
Hey, everybody, it's Josh. Ever wonder what your team's missing in customer calls? Update AI doesn't just take notes. It captures the moments that matter. It auto-builds account plans, spots risk and upsell signals, and services the themes your execs actually ask for. It's what top revenue teams are using to stay ahead. Message me at josh@update.ai. I'll show you how it works.
Mike, let me ask you, so obviously all this sounds wonderful. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing as you're leading these conversations with customers?
I think the biggest challenge that remains, that probably doesn't get talked enough about in the context of this AI transformation, is the people. And enabling them to either embrace this change that is inevitably coming, to make sense of and get value out of it, and to be willing participants, in that transformation. The discussion that I was referencing that we got into last week, I think it was the view of that person that, people are going to play a much, much smaller role in the not too distant future in this world. I think our belief is that instead, humans, people, their work will just be elevated. That we'll be able to remove or eliminate a lot of the administrative work, and to put people in a much better position to take advantage of that. And so in our own AI transformation, we really leaned into that. We launched an internal app store for people to be able to take advantage of things that could directly impact their work. One thing we did was, for example, we called it a point of view generator. And it integrated our workflow builder in with data that we get from Salesforce and call transcripts and Zoom info, publicly available data, and said, in this structure, with the click of a button, please, help you are an expert in helping a new account executive prepare for their next call. Here's the structure we want you to present that information in. And so now we have a template that, in fact, we do this now at scale. It started with you would one click, enter your account plan from Asana, you have a link to your opportunity within Salesforce or account link within Salesforce, and generate a point of view. We got such value out of this that now we're doing it scalably across the org at the start of the new year as we do book cutovers, where for a certain set of accounts, it's just automatically created. It's attached to the account record, and the AE can access those. So we don't have to go through all this handoff and back and forth and additional calls, and that's happening. You can really do the AE can just pull it for themselves.
Mike, I'm doing this right now. I just started this job 3 weeks. This is my third week, and we're such a lightweight team. I mean, we have 4 people on the customer.
You haven't told your listeners that you started a new job, just so you know. So it's
they all are as surprised as you are, Josh. We're not. This isn't about me. But what I'm saying is, I just ran the team through this exact workflow of account handoffs because we're just so tired of these big documents that just live in Google Drive that you update once a year, right? The context. And I did that. I just manually went through all of our Fathom recordings for these accounts, plumbed them into my GPT, built a framework, exported it, built a template, and it's a new process that we're implementing. And I love the way that you're thinking about this from, it shouldn't just be that I create this document so somebody can read it. It is at the point of need. I want the context to be able to say, I got a new CSM or I got a new AE for whatever reason. What's going on in the last 6 months? And then here's a readout. And getting to that point where you have prepared everything for the human to go in and get the data. That's what we're talking about, where you're like, the elevation of the human work, right? Is my job should not be, I have to go collate 60 hours of calls and send, this kind of stuff. What I would rather do is just get really strategic on what the outcomes could be and put my work towards that. And the more that we can start thinking about data as this fluid thing, because that's what AI makes data, it makes it accessible. We're going to have that excellence of work that we're getting from that. It's so, because I just, right before we started recording this, I was like walking my boss through the template. I was like, you just read out like what I did. Like, oh, that would have saved me weeks.
Well, this was the genesis of AI Studio. Was we were using ChatGPT or Claude, internally. We were doing exactly what the process you just described. We're copying and pasting data, putting it into, Claude, having it make sense of it, copy and paste it, put it back into this thing, assigning a task to that person. Now you can just build a workflow around it. So I know I need to execute this set of steps. I need you to make sense of this documentation and to create, an analysis of what actions we're needing you to take. I need you to actually automatically assign that work out to people and have these collaborators. And then the human in the loop is when they review it and approve that work. Now maybe we can, go and make that available to the field. Or as we're doing now, we're making this a part of QBR. So you can, as part of the workflow, launch a Google Slides in the structure that you provided, so that there's not all this cobbling together of a story or a narrative at a QBR and all the time that takes. Account executives hate it. It's so time consuming. They think it's really just for leadership to help them make sense of their business. There's a lot of value in QBRs, and we're putting everybody in a position where it becomes less of an information gathering exercise and much more of a strategic look back and look forward as to what needs to be done.
I want to make a note. I just hit a little button in the little thing that marked that segment, because this is the first time anybody has ever said the words, there is a lot of value in QBRs on this podcast. And I just wanted to make sure that we took a moment for it. I agree with you with a lot of caveats, but just to kind of close this out, like I really do, like I went and watched Minority Report a couple weeks ago just because I've been digging so much into this, and that's what I want. That is the future of CSing. Is I want that live data. I want that live synthesis. And it's just going to take a lot of tokens to get there.
I have a take on where I think,
Josh, we're fine.
No, that's okay. I know you're fine. I know you're fine, but I'm fine with it.
Josh, come on, add some value, Josh.
No. Every once in a while, I try to layer in a little bit, that it's going to help. This AI stuff is going to help elevate your current role and your current, role responsibilities. But what I think people don't talk about as much is how it can help to expand the breadth of what you can do outside of your current role. And I think that is actually something for customer success, for all the go-to-market, for sales too, and that is really profound. That I can now unblock other departments and other groups that I'm waiting on. Oh, there's my customer wants a mock of this or a prototype of that, but let me just go and do it myself. I don't have to wait to put it into the design queue for 3 weeks.
Yep.
And I talk about this example a lot. Our head of data science, he having some great ideas, but he's blocked, and not having the design support to have like the mock of what he's thinking done immediately. And now he just uses Claude. He's coming up with his own prototypes, and that we're going straight to requirements from that. It's like amazing.
Yeah, I think we just saw another great example of this. I mean, when I started in this role, again, there was a ton of demand that wasn't necessarily anticipated, at least to the degree it came. And I think a couple weeks into the start of this, my boss, the CRO, we had a regular weekly forecast call, and he said, your waterfall is great. I understand how much you think you're going to convert later by the end of this quarter, but I need a bottoms up, view into this. I want to trust that deal by deal what is happening across all of AI Studio, and you have 7 days to get there. We used a workflow. We built this around this within Asana. We're pulling data from. We use Clary today. We've essentially just replaced that with Asana by pulling all the data from Salesforce automatically. It is using call transcripts. It's using Zoom info. It's using email dialogue that's happening back and forth. And then I wrote a prompt that says, if X number of signals have happened, this deal is in for the quarter. If it looks like Y, basically cutting a line between deals that are called in and out. And now we pull all this into a text field, and it's shown by stage and by revenue amount there. And I can just look in an instant, and it's updated every 12 hours. That's the pace we've chosen it at. And it's giving me a justification for why it called this deal in or out. And it's saying you have your AE has interacted with 3 different people, including the buyer. The last discussion they had was this: they had clear next steps. This is why we're calling it in. I think this has, put us in a position where we can really, to your point, not only put me and our team in a better position where we can get, to John's earlier point, a much deeper understanding of what's going on in a faster amount of time. Not only I'm not going to bother all these teams for the same things. I've elevated all of our roles because now they trust me to, that I'm coming with information. So we built a workflow that automatically assigns a task out before their forecast call, segmented by, leader. And we're saying, here's the justification for why we think your deals for AI Studio are going to close or not. Can you take an action, either keeping it in quarter and validating this, just complete the task? If so, when they complete the task, if they put a comment in there, it'll automatically be included in the justification. I think this has just really changed the way that, even just using this example, a team like ours can operate where I'm not having to bother folks for updates. Instead, I can bring value to them right off the bat.
So boom, you've bypassed the entire speed bump of BI in a second. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had all this done within the 7 days. But now you got it all.
Well, and I feel like the value prop here, like if you're a CSM listening to this podcast and you implement these tools, you will never have to get another Slack from an AE asking for an updated handoff doc ever again.
Yeah,
just send them to your AI tool.
That's right.
No, it just feels like like early 2000s when Google was coming out and Ask Jeeves. Do you remember Ask Jeeves, the browser? It's like one of my favorite things. Hey, what's going? It was the first like conversational search, whatever. It was so cheesy, but like we're just doing permutation to get back to that point where I just want to like know what's going on and figure it out. Good work. I'm excited to see where this kind of grows. I know it's all relatively new, but like, I know one of the things that Josh and Christy also like looking at the infrastructure of your group, what go-to-market looks like, what success looks like for your customers, and what those new KPIs are, because they're going to be different. We had Brett Queener, a VC, on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about like the monthly active users or the weekly, like those metrics that we use for success don't matter anymore. And what those new metrics are. Josh, you'll have to forward him the blog that he wrote from last week. It's pretty interesting, but I'm really excited to hear the lessons that you learned from that over this next year on how you track success.
Yeah, early days for sure. I would say, but what's clear is the amount of times a person logged in is, going to quickly become a thing of the past. And it's really going to be a lot more about, in our case, we use credits. It's a version of tokens, just making sense of tokens in our world. Yeah. We're tracking very closely how many credits customers are consuming as they deploy, some of these use cases, starting with the free product up through, our pro version that's available to customers today.
I love that. Awesome.
Christy, I want to end with a little bit of CS and sales, chatter. So Mike was leading enterprise.
I thought the AI stuff was way more interesting. Jackson doesn't really.
Yeah, you're right. Jackson didn't appreciate that question.
Jackson's like, absolutely not. He goes, this is a strong AI episode.
Vetoed.
Daddy, just leave it alone.
Okay, fine. Vetoed. All right. Then I'm going to go on mute and you close us off, Christy.
I just feel like we could have gone down a customer success rabbit hole, but I think there was so much more value, Mike, in hearing some of the use cases and the stuff that you guys are doing with the AI workflows and things that I didn't even want to interject with any customer success stuff, because I don't think that's the real value add to this episode in particular. I guess the only thing I would ask, Mike, before we wrap up, though, is as you're thinking about the customer base here, and Asana as a whole, like, are there any limits here? Are there limits for which customers would get value from this? Is every customer part of the TAM for this product? Are you seeing everyone start to slowly adopt it? Are there concerns where customers aren't using it?
I think yes. No, we don't believe there are limits necessarily. I think we have opened up new TAM here for sure. I think one great example of that is the sales leadership or customer success leadership has been a difficult, not for us to crack as obviously as maybe the marketing, building campaigns or product launches, or PMO intake work might be. And I think the example that I just gave to you has gotten people really excited. And we saw a customer who was kind of going back and forth on their decision with Asana, see this, and then, buy it within a week. And I think it has opened up a ton of possibilities for us. Obviously, leaders are still trying to make sense of this space altogether. There's, noise you have to cut through to show them that there's something tangible here. And I think we're focused on, what is the fastest way we can get this in people's hands with clarity about its value so that they can get and feel that right off the bat, and that we are going to need to continue to innovate or die. Like, this is going to move really, really fast. And we got to put ourselves in a position to be able to capture those additional, buyers and use cases as this thing grows and help them make sense of it. But I think the thing that's been most exciting for me, in addition to all that, has really been what you hit on the end there, which is, we see the potential to shift away from, people having to enter data into the system and instead use Asana, what is really intended to be, which is to be the place where people can make sense of who's doing what, by when, how and why. And, as we launch more integrations, as we get away from people having to manually enter stuff and to start to leverage this no-code workflow builder, I built the workflow that I was describing. I am furthest thing from someone who historically would have been able to build something this powerful using, software. It typically did require some coding expertise. I did have some help. We have a long way to go to make it one click and super easy. But the fact that I was able to build even one workflow off the back of, some help was, I think is a sign of where this thing is going. And it's really, really exciting. And I think on the CX and sales example that John hit on, like, we've had a really complicated go-to-market motion with you start in trialing the platform, and then there's at some point you introduce sales and CS, and they're kind of overlapping with each other's jobs. And we can help make that clear on who owns what, in what context, and to give them both, the information they need going into these customer relationships so both can be much more successful together. And that's also really exciting.
Mike Haylon, GM of AI Studio at Asana, thank you so much for being on the episode. And like John said, we'd love to have you come back in a few months and let us know where things are.
Not me, but you, Mike.
Yeah, not John. We'd love for Mike to come back.
Thank you all very much. I had a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me.
Of course.
Thanks, Mike.